Welcome to my views and news. Some news stories for you. First one is about preparations for a major protest against Ethiopian government. Orthodox protest is in the making across the world. On Sunday, the protest will be held. Will there be demonstrations in Ethiopia too? Because last night, Holy Synod announced to protest against the government if government did not respect church laws. Secondly, Arsi viewers, West Arsi, where some arrests have been made of members of Orthodox Church affiliated with Abune Matthias group who made the arrests. And in Shashamane, Arsi, a demonstration was held today by Orthodox followers. Thirdly, 5 Eastern Orthodox churches, their leaders are going to meet. They're meeting in Egypt. And Russia spoke as well, Russian ambassador, about the ongoing conflict within Ethiopia. And lastly, viewers, Eritrea today, a few hours ago, Eritrean information minister accused some analysts that they were fanatical supporters of some groups, and he tried to blame unrest in the region for lack of development, lack of industrialization in Eritrea. He talked about Eritrean desire for lasting and permanent peace. What did he say? Firstly, viewers, on the 5th of February, Sunday, protests are going to be held by Orthodox followers across the world, Ethiopian Orthodox Church followers. We are hearing calls, flyers are being distributed, shared online for these demonstrations. So far, we have seen flyers about protests in Denver, Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., and other cities and states of the US and Europe too, perhaps. Secondly, reportedly, Bahirdar diocese has announced to protest on Sunday too. Is this the protest which Holy Synod announced last night? Last night, the Synod led by Abune Matthias announced that the church would be forced to protest, peaceful protest, if the government did not respect church laws. But no date was announced by the church authorities. So far, no confirmation if Sunday's protest is actually the protest which is going to be called by the Patriarch Abune Matthias. Abune Matthias has not called for Sunday's protest so far, but preparations are underway. So maybe he could announce in coming hours that on Sunday major demonstration will be held. Even without his announcement, protests will be held. Interested to see if the protests will be held in Ethiopia or not, because preparations are mainly being seen across the world abroad. Only one diocese announced demonstration on Sunday in Ethiopia, that is Bahirdar, and we must not forget that Amhara region, Gondar, Ganjam, are home to large number of Orthodox followers. This conflict should not turn into Oromo-Amhara conflict, Oromo versus Amhara, though it is basically. But so far, conflict is between the elites within the church. If protests start, common believers will be involved. Ordinary Amharas, Oromo will be involved. And here lies the risk that situation could get out of control. So protests should be avoided in Ethiopia, I think. Especially the two sides. If they start protesting side by side, it could lead to confrontation. So far, only Bahirdar diocese announced to be part of protests on Sunday. Secondly, viewers, in Oromia, fight is on for control of churches. As I reported in the previous video that in Nakamte, a bishop was expelled by Oromia security forces who took control of a church in Nakamte, East Valaga. Now West Arsi zone, where a diocese general manager and PR head have been arrested by regional forces. Ordovan Tilahun is general manager of West Arsi diocese, arrested by Oromia region security forces. Solomon Zigai is public relations head of this diocese. He is also in custody. And in Shashamane, West Arsi, I think Shashamane is in Arsi, there was a demonstration, peaceful demonstration in support of Abune Matthias, the patriarch. You can see some pictures on your screen which are from Shashamane. So in Arsi, protest in support of Abune Matthias led church, and in Arsi, West Arsi diocese general manager and public relations in charge have been arrested by Oromia security forces. We are seeing this clash so far. Luckily, no physical clash, but Oromia security forces are now openly involved. They're supporting the new group. And those priests, those bishops who are still loyal to the Abune Matthias led faction, they are being sidelined, it seems. Thirdly, Eastern Orthodox churches of the world are now becoming involved, or they are being asked to be involved. In Egypt, 5 Eastern Orthodox church patriarchs are meeting. Egypt, Armenia, India, Eritrea, and Ethiopia. The East Orthodox churches patriarchs are going to meet there to discuss the ongoing conflict in Ethiopia. A statement is expected, which is going to be in support of the patriarch, the synod, I think, because we have seen statements from Coptic Church, from other churches. They've been supporting the Abune Matthias-led church faction since the start of this conflict. Russian ambassador, in an interview with the news outlet, backed church led by Abune Matthias, and he said that church's internal laws should be respected and all conflicts should be resolved in accordance with church's own laws. So in a way, he indirectly backed the patriarch-led church. But in case of confrontation between the church, the synod and government, where would Russia stand? Will it openly support Abune Matthias-led group? I don't think so. Russia has strategic interests in Ethiopia, in Eritrea. I don't think it will go against the government. So it will try to keep on issuing statements, but it will not openly condemn the government. And lastly, viewers, Eritrea. Information Minister of Eritrea, Yemena Gebremeskel, a few hours ago, lashed out at some analysts like Alex Devol, who is, it is said that he is pro-TPLF, he works for TPLF, accused by Eritrean activists, Eritrean government, and that he is very critical of Eritrean government, Eritrean leader. He lashed out at Alex Devol, calling him a rabid character. That such rabid characters were portraying Eritrea as a spoiler of peace. That Eritrea wants to spoil. It wants to undermine the peace deal signed in November between TPLF and Ethiopian federal government. I think Alex Devol and some others, they wrote articles as well, claiming that Eritrea was not happy with the peace deal. It was going to spoil the peace agreement. By the way, from day one, I've been saying Eritrea is not going to play the role of a spoiler. It is It was completely on board when the agreement was signed because it was represented through Ethiopia. It achieved at the table which it wanted to achieve in the battlefield, disarmament. My consistent position, for the last 2 months. Interesting thing is that Yemeni Gebremeskel is trying to blame unrest in the region for lack of development, lack of industrialization in Eritrea. He said, everlasting, irreversible peace is in the best interest of Eritrea because Eritrea can focus on development, it can focus on its blue economy, it can focus on its mining sector, and it can make use of its geostrategic advantage, location of its advantage. So all these potentials can be explored if there is peace. It means he is basically saying that Eritrea could not work on these sectors in the past 3 decades because of unrest, because of wars. It would be unfair to say that Eritrea could not develop its sectors because it was facing security challenges. Yes, there were issues. Eritrea was involved in some issues in neighboring countries with neighbors too. But to blame TPLF or to blame unrest in the region for poor performance of the government is unfair. Eritrea could have done a lot had it introduced democratic reforms for participation of people. Eritrea could have learned a lot from the world, which it will have to. I mean, Eritrea cannot develop its mining sector on its own. Obviously, it needs help, whether from US, EU, China, or Russia. It needs technological help, maybe financial help too. Yes, it can draw some red lines, but without cooperation with the advanced countries, it is difficult for Eritrean government to do something for its people. And we are seeing that Chinese companies are involved now. Russia is being invited to. Russia is setting up a base there in Massawa. So cooperation is needed between Eritrea and rest of the world. And participation of Eritrean people in decision making is needed. And for all this to happen, you need reforms, which the government is against. That is why it is unfair to say that Eritrea could not work on development because of wars. How long did Eritrea fight in the last 30 years against TPLF? For a few years only. Rest of the period was relatively peaceful, you can say. Countries keep on interfering in each other's matters. It happens. It does not mean that this interference should be blamed for poor performance. Eritrean government needs to do a lot of internal accountability if it wants to do the accountability. People are not allowed to hold the government accountable. So who will correct them? No one. Self-correction is the only option. Let's see. Will they go for it? Thank you for watching.